Hello everyone. Tonight we have something special for you. We're going to embark on a relaxing journey to the future. We're starting with a topic that's a bit unexplored. Don't worry, it's all at a calm pace, perfect for a good night's sleep. Picture this. You're lying in bed right now, probably in your comfy pajamas, maybe scrolling through your phone one last time. But imagine instead you're in a cramped metal pod on Mars in 2157. And tomorrow you have to wake up and try not to die in the most hostile environment humans have ever attempted to colonize. Spoiler alert, you probably wouldn't last a week. The soft sound of recycled air ventilation systems will accompany us on this journey through humanity's most ambitious and miserable colonization attempt. I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city and local time. Are you tucked in bed or still fighting sleep? Before you settle in and enjoy the video, how about leaving a like and subscribing to the channel? Only if you really enjoy what you're seeing, of course. Your support makes all the difference and motivates me to bring even more incredible content to you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. If it's too cold, grab a cozy blanket and let's begin tonight's journey together. You step off the transport shuttle onto the surface of Mars Colony Alpha, and the first thing that hits you isn't the alien landscape or the wonder of being on another planet. It's the smell. Even through your supposedly state-of-the-art life support suit, you can detect the metallic tang of recycled air, mixed with what the orientation manual politely calls biological processing odors. Welcome to humanity's greatest achievement, a $2 trillion experiment in making life as miserable as possible while technically keeping people alive. The soft hum of air recycling systems echoes through your helmet, a constant reminder that every breath you take has been inside someone else's lungs approximately 847 times before reaching yours. You're assigned orientation buddy, a hollow-eyed woman named Sarah who's been on Mars for 8 months and looks like she's aged 8 years, greets you with the enthusiasm of someone announcing a funeral. Congratulations, she says, her voice crackling through the comm system. You've just joined the most expensive suicide mission in human history. The colony sprawls before you like a collection of metal shipping containers that someone arranged with all the aesthetic sensibility of a prison complex. The main habitat domes glisten in the pale Martian sunlight, surrounded by machinery that sounds like it's constantly on the verge of breakdown. Rule number 1, Sarah continues as you walk toward the main airlock. Forget everything you think you know about being human. Here, you're basically a very expensive houseplant that occasionally needs to fix machinery. The landscape around you is simultaneously breathtaking and soul-crushing. Mars stretches endlessly in every direction, a rust-colored wasteland that makes the Sahara Desert look like a tropical paradise. The sky is a sickly butterscotch color that never changes, creating a permanent feeling that you're living inside a sepia photograph. As you approach the main habitat, you notice other colonists working outside in their bulky EVA suits. They move like deep-sea divers, slow and deliberate, because every step could potentially puncture their suits and turn them into very expensive freeze-dried jerky. See that guy over there? Sarah points to a figure struggling with what looks like a solar panel. That's Marcus. He's been trying to fix that same panel for 3 weeks. We call it Martian efficiency. Everything takes 4 times longer than it should because if you rush, you die. The constant hum of air recycling systems creates an oddly soothing backdrop to this orientation tour of despair, like a mechanical lullaby for humanity's most ambitious midlife crisis. You pass by the colony's cemetery, a small section marked by metal plaques driven into the frozen ground. Sarah notices you staring. Don't worry, she says with dark humor. We don't actually bury people here. Too much work to dig in permafrost. We just recycle them. The way she says recycle makes your stomach turn. As you finally reach the main airlock, Sarah turns to you with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Any last questions before we go inside and begin your new life as a professional sufferer? You want to ask 1,000 questions, but the only one that comes out is, how many people actually make it through their first year? Sarah's pause tells you everything. Let's just say the return shuttle is always surprisingly spacious. The airlock door hisses open, and you step into your new home, a place where humanity has successfully recreated all the worst aspects of submarine life, prison existence, and Antarctic research stations, but with the added excitement of knowing that the entire planet is actively trying to kill you. The gentle whoosh of recycled air systems welcomes you to Mars Colony Alpha, where every day is an adventure in discovering new ways that the human body was never meant to live. The first thing they hand you after decontamination is what they cheerfully call your life tracker. a device that looks like a fitness watch, but actually monitors every breath you take. Because on Mars, breathing is a carefully calculated privilege, not a basic biological function. Your daily oxygen allocation is 550 liters, explains Dr. Chen, the colony's resource manager, with the enthusiasm of someone explaining tax codes. That might sound like a lot, but remember, every deep breath during exercise, every sigh of frustration, every hyperventilation episode during your inevitable panic attacks, it all comes out of your daily budget. The soft hum of the air recycling systems continues its mechanical lullaby as you learn that staying alive on Mars requires the mathematical precision of a NASA mission, combined with the self-control of a Buddhist monk. You quickly discover that colonists develop a unique form of anxiety called breath awareness syndrome. Every colonist walks around constantly conscious of their breathing patterns, like having a panic attack in reverse. Instead of feeling like you can't breathe, you're terrified of breathing too much. See Janet over there? Dr. Chen points to a woman sitting perfectly still in the common area, staring at the wall. She's not meditating. She's trying to lower her respiratory rate after accidentally using up 80% of her oxygen allocation during a morning workout. She's got 6 hours left on today's budget. The colony's oxygen comes from 3 sources: electrolysis machines that split water molecules, algae farms that smell like an aquarium left in the sun for months, and emergency reserves that everyone knows exist but nobody talks about because thinking about needing them is too terrifying. The mathematical beauty of oxygen rationing becomes clear during your first meal. Every colonist sits silently, chewing slowly, because digestion requires oxygen, and talking while eating is considered wasteful. Dinner conversation consists of hand gestures and meaningful looks. You learn about oxygen debt. What happens when someone exceeds their daily allocation? They don't die immediately. Instead, they're put on reduced rations the next day, meaning they get 400 liters instead of 550. The human body can survive this technically, but you spend the entire day feeling like you're slowly suffocating while doing basic tasks. The recycling systems hum constantly in the background, processing every exhalation and trying to reclaim as much oxygen as possible. The technology is impressive. The psychological effect of knowing you're breathing recycled air from 200 other people is less impressive. The worst part, Sarah confides during your first oxygen-conscious conversation, is that you start calculating everything in terms of breath cost. Climbing stairs? That's 12 extra breaths. Getting excited about something? There goes 30 breaths. Having sex? Well, let's just say romance becomes very efficient here. Sleep becomes a strategic activity. Colonists train themselves to sleep with controlled breathing patterns, and everyone uses sleep masks that monitor respiratory rates. Snoring is considered a serious social offense because it indicates inefficient oxygen usage. The colony has developed its own breathing exercises, not for relaxation, but for survival. The Mars breath involves shallow, controlled inhalations that maximize oxygen efficiency. Everyone practices it obsessively, creating a colony full of people who look like they're perpetually holding their breath. Emergency protocols exist for oxygen crises. If the main recycling system fails, colonists are required to implement hibernation breathing, a meditative state where respiratory rates drop to near sleep levels while remaining conscious. It's like being awake, but pretending to be a sloth. The psychological counselors, who exist mainly via video calls from Earth with frustrating time delays, have identified oxygen anxiety as the leading cause of colonist mental health issues. People develop compulsive behaviors around their breath trackers, checking them hundreds of times per day. You watch a colonist named Kevin having what appears to be a breakdown in the corridor. He's hyperventilating while staring at his tracker, which shows he's blown through 90% of his daily allocation by noon. Sarah shakes her head. 3rd time this month. He'll be on reduced rations tomorrow, which means he'll probably hyperventilate again from anxiety, which means more reduced rations. The constant hum of air processing systems serves as a reminder that every breath is a technological achievement, a small victory against the vacuum of space, and a countdown toward your daily limit. By evening, your throat feels dry from consciously controlling your breathing patterns, and you understand why every colonist develops the same slightly haunted expression. They're not traumatized by the harsh landscape or isolation. They're exhausted from spending every moment managing the most basic biological function that Earth humans take completely for granted. Meanwhile, your first personal hygiene experience on Mars makes you nostalgic for the days when you complained about low water pressure at home. The colony's bathroom facilities operate on what they call closed-loop water management, which is a polite way of saying you're about to become very intimate with your own bodily fluids. Water allocation is 2.3 liters per person per day, announces the bathroom orientation guide, a cheerful woman named Beth, who speaks about water recycling with the passion of a wine sommelier. That includes drinking, cooking, and cleaning. Choose wisely. The gentle hum of water purification systems joins the air recyclers in creating Mars' signature soundtrack of mechanical survival. Your daily shower consists of exactly 30 seconds of recycled water mist, followed by antibacterial wipes that smell like industrial cleaner, mixed with disappointment. The water hitting your skin has been through the colony's filtration system so many times that it carries the faint taste of everyone who's used it before you. Don't think about where the water comes from, Beth advises with practiced cheerfulness. Just remember that our recycling technology is 99.6% effective. That 0.4% is, well, let's call it character building. The bathroom mirror reflects your gradually deteriorating appearance as you learn that personal hygiene on Mars means accepting a level of cleanliness that would have been considered barbaric in medieval times. Your hair develops a permanently greasy texture that no amount of dry shampoo can fix, and your skin takes on the pale, slightly gray pallor that all long-term Mars residents share. Laundry happens once per week, using a system that's essentially a glorified washing machine filled with recycled water and hope. Clothes come out technically clean, but with a persistent chemical smell that everyone pretends not to notice. Most colonists own 3 outfits maximum because storage space is precious, and variety is a luxury Earth concept. The colony's dental hygiene protocol involves water-free toothpaste and a monthly fluoride tablet that tastes like chalk mixed with regret. Dental floss is rationed like precious metal, and everyone develops the same slightly yellow teeth that give Mars colonists their distinctive smile. Personal bathing becomes a weekly event that requires advanced planning and resource allocation. You're assigned a specific time slot, given your 2.3 liters of recycled water in a special container, and expected to accomplish what Earth humans do with 150 liters of fresh water daily. The psychological impact of perpetual grubbiness cannot be understated. Within a month, every colonist develops what psychologists call hygiene resignation syndrome, a complete abandonment of aesthetic standards combined with an acceptance that everyone smells like a mixture of recycled air, industrial cleaning products, and suppressed desperation. The water recycling systems hum constantly, processing urine, humidity from breathing, and what Beth diplomatically calls other biological moisture sources. Why? The technology is impressive. The knowledge that you're drinking yesterday's bathroom activities is less impressive. Here's the thing about water on Mars, Sarah explains during your first week. You stop thinking of it as dirty or clean, and start thinking of it as available or unavailable. Purity is a luxury concept that doesn't exist when every drop has to be shipped from another planet or extracted from rocks. Emergency water protocols involve collecting condensation from air vents, recycling sweat from exercise equipment, and what the manual euphemistically calls emergency biological collection procedures. Nobody talks about what this actually means, but the haunted expressions on senior colonists' faces tell you everything. You quickly learn that Mars hygiene etiquette involves accepting that everyone smells, looks, and feels perpetually grimy. Personal space becomes less about privacy and more about not forcing others to deal with your odors in confined spaces. The constant sound of water processing equipment creates an oddly soothing backdrop to your gradual acceptance that cleanliness is just another Earth luxury that doesn't translate to survival conditions. You begin to understand why every Mars colonist develops the same slightly disheveled appearance. Not from lack of caring, but from the mathematical impossibility of staying clean with 2.3 liters of recycled everything. By the end of your first week, you catch yourself calculating the water cost of every activity, crying, wasteful, sweating during exercise, acceptable but monitored, and washing your hands, limited to once after bathroom use and once before meals. The gentle whir of purification systems reminds you constantly that every drop of water touching your skin has been inside someone else's body multiple times, creating an intimacy with your fellow colonists that nobody asked for, but everyone shares. The time passes, and you now face your first Martian meal, which makes prison food look like a Michelin-starred dining experience. The colony's nutritionist, Dr. Martinez, presents your breakfast with the enthusiasm of someone announcing a terminal diagnosis: protein paste, cricket flour pancakes, and what we call mystery vitamins, because we're not entirely sure what's in them anymore. The soft hum of food processing equipment joins the symphony of mechanical survival sounds that have become Mars' permanent soundtrack. Your breakfast consists of a gray paste that supposedly contains all essential nutrients, but tastes like cardboard mixed with artificial chicken flavoring. The cricket flour pancakes have the texture of sawdust held together with the tears of food scientists who gave up their dreams. The mystery vitamins are actually algae tablets that turn your mouth green for several hours. The protein paste is made from lab-grown muscle tissue. Dr. Martinez explains cheerfully, combined with recycled organic matter and supplemental amino acids. It's perfectly safe and contains everything your body needs to survive. Enjoying it is optional. Food on Mars operates on the principle of nutritional efficiency over palatability. Every meal is calculated to provide exact caloric requirements with minimal waste production. Flavor is considered a luxury that adds unnecessary complexity to survival logistics. The colony's food production happens in 3 depressing locations: hydroponic farms that smell like chemical fertilizer, protein synthesis labs that sound like mad scientist experiments, and insect breeding facilities that produce the cricket flour everyone pretends tastes nutty. You quickly discover that Mars colonists develop what psychologists call food apathy syndrome, a complete loss of interest in eating anything beyond basic survival requirements. Meals become purely functional, like refueling a machine rather than enjoying human culture. Lunch is typically nutrient cubes, compressed blocks that contain everything needed for afternoon energy levels. They come in 3 flavors: original, tastes like nothing; savory, tastes like salty nothing; and sweet, tastes like nothing with artificial sweetener. The gentle whirring of food processing machines continues as you learn that fresh food is a myth on Mars. Everything is either grown in chemical solutions, synthesized in laboratories, or reconstituted from powders that arrived on cargo ships 3 years ago. Dinner features textured vegetable protein, shaped to resemble familiar foods. Tonight's offering is chicken that has never seen a chicken, beef made from plant proteins and hope, and vegetables that grew in solutions that smell like industrial cleaning products. The colony's communal dining area operates in complete silence, not from social rules but because talking while eating wastes precious calories and oxygen. Every colonist chews mechanically while staring at nothing, creating the atmosphere of a very expensive prison cafeteria. Special occasions feature luxury meals that include actual spices shipped from Earth at astronomical cost. A single black peppercorn costs approximately $50 when calculated by shipping weight, making seasoning the ultimate status symbol. The recycling systems hum constantly as they process food waste, which gets broken down and fed back into the growing systems. Nothing is wasted, including the knowledge that you're eating recycled organic matter from sources you prefer not to contemplate. The hardest part isn't the taste, confides Marcus during one of your first communal meals. It's knowing that this is literally the best food available for the next 2 years. There's no restaurant to escape to, no comfort food when you're sad, no celebration meals when something good happens. Food storage operates like a military supply chain, with strict inventory control and rationing systems. Every colonist gets exactly the same portions regardless of size, activity level, or personal preferences. Complaining about meals is considered poor colony citizenship. The psychological impact of monotonous nutrition cannot be understated. Within weeks, every colonist develops food-related depression and begins having elaborate fantasies about Earth meals they previously considered ordinary. Pizza becomes a religious concept. Fresh fruit transforms into mythical treasure. Emergency food protocols involve reducing everyone to survival rations, compressed nutrition bars that taste like chalk and provide bare minimum calories for basic survival. These rations can sustain human life for months, but guarantee complete culinary misery. The constant sound of food processing equipment reminds you that every bite represents a triumph of technology over nature, a victory of human engineering over hostile environment, and a complete defeat of anything resembling culinary pleasure. By your second week, you understand why Mars colonists all have the same slightly hollow-eyed expression when discussing food. They're not hungry for calories, they're starving for flavor, texture, variety, and the simple pleasure of eating something because it tastes good rather than because it prevents death. While this nutritional nightmare continues, you discover that working outside the colony requires donning what they optimistically call protective equipment, but which more accurately resembles a $2 million coffin with air conditioning. Your first EVA, extravehicular activity, suit fitting reveals why Mars colonization has the highest insurance premiums in human history. This suit costs more than most people's houses, explains EVA supervisor Tom, padding the bulky white contraption with the affection usually reserved for expensive sports cars. It's also the only thing standing between you and becoming a human popsicle in about 30 seconds. The constant hum of suit life support systems adds another layer to Mars's mechanical symphony, creating what sounds like wearing a portable intensive care unit. The EVA suit weighs 180 pounds and makes you move like a deep-sea diver having a stroke. Every motion requires deliberate planning, because spontaneous movements can damage seals, tear fabric, or worse, disconnect something vital that keeps your blood from boiling in the Martian atmosphere. Your first outdoor work assignment involves replacing a solar panel array approximately 200 meters from the main habitat. This task, which would take 30 minutes on Earth, requires 4 hours of preparation, 2 hours of actual work, and another hour of decontamination afterward. Remember, Tom instructs as you waddle toward the airlock, Mars is actively trying to kill you in 17 different ways simultaneously. The suit protects you from 16 of them. The 17th is your own stupidity, so try to keep that under control. The Martian surface feels like walking on a combination of sand, broken glass, and frozen regret. Every step creates small puffs of iron oxide dust that immediately coats your visor and makes visibility progressively worse throughout your work shift. Temperature management becomes a constant battle. The suit's heating system works overtime to keep you from freezing, while physical exertion makes you sweat profusely inside the sealed environment. You simultaneously experience hypothermia and heat exhaustion, creating a uniquely miserable form of thermal confusion. The gentle whirring of oxygen recyclers in your suit reminds you that every breath depends on machinery that could fail at any moment. Suit malfunctions aren't inconveniences, they're death sentences with very short timelines. Communication with other EVA workers happens through radio systems that constantly crackle with static and interference. Conversations sound like submarine crews during wartime, filled with technical jargon and the underlying tension of people whose lives depend on equipment functioning properly. Solar panel replacement involves using tools designed for astronauts but operated by people with the manual dexterity of Arctic researchers wearing oven mitts. Every task requires 5 times longer than anticipated, because fine motor control doesn't exist in EVA suits. The trick, explains veteran worker Lisa through the radio static, is to accept that you're basically a very expensive robot with anxiety. Don't try to be human out here. Just focus on not breaking anything important, especially yourself. The Martian landscape stretches endlessly in every direction, creating a profound sense of isolation that makes Earth's most remote locations feel crowded by comparison. Working outside feels like being the only living thing on an entire planet, which technically, you almost are. Dust storms appear without warning, turning daylight into twilight and reducing visibility to arm's length. Protocol requires immediate return to habitat, but immediate in EVA suits means a slow, careful waddle while hoping your navigation systems still function through the interference. The constant sound of life support systems creates an oddly comforting backdrop to the terror of working in an environment that wants to kill you. The mechanical humming becomes a technological heartbeat that confirms you're still alive and protected. Equipment failures happen constantly. Solar panels break from thermal stress, machinery seizes from dust infiltration, and electronic systems randomly malfunction from radiation exposure. Every EVA mission includes troubleshooting problems that didn't exist when you started work. The worst part, Tom confides during suit maintenance, isn't the danger or discomfort. It's knowing that every time you go outside, you're completely dependent on technology that's operating at the edge of its design limits, in conditions it was never really meant to handle. Emergency protocols for EVA accidents involve scenarios nobody likes to discuss, but everyone trains for obsessively. Suit breach procedures, life support failures, and catastrophic equipment malfunction responses fill training manuals that read like horror novels. The psychological impact of working in a spacesuit every day cannot be understated. You develop claustrophobia, mechanical anxiety, and what mission psychologists call suit dependency syndrome, the fear that you can't survive without artificial life support. By your third EVA mission, you understand why outdoor workers have the highest turnover rate in the colony. It's not just the physical danger or technical complexity. It's the daily reminder that you're a fragile biological organism trying to survive in an environment that considers your existence a cosmic mistake. The time passes, and you witness your first case of what the colony's medical team politely calls environmental adaptation syndrome, but which everyone else recognizes as a complete psychological breakdown. Mars doesn't just challenge your body, It systematically destroys your mental health in ways that Earth's most creative torturers never imagined. Dr. Sarah Kim, the colony's overworked psychologist, explains the phenomenon with clinical detachment. The human brain evolved for Earth conditions: wide open spaces, blue skies, changing weather, seasonal variation. Mars provides none of these psychological anchors, creating a unique form of sensory deprivation that slowly drives people insane. The constant hum of air recycling systems now sounds like the mechanical heartbeat of a planet-sized asylum, providing the soundtrack to humanity's most expensive mental health crisis. The first symptom of Mars madness appears as color fixation. Colonists become obsessed with the endless orange landscape and begin seeing patterns, faces, or messages in the rocks. Rational engineers start believing the Martian surface is trying to communicate with them through dust formations. You observe Marcus, the same colonist who struggled with solar panels, now spending hours staring out the observation deck windows, quietly muttering about the patterns in the rocks that spell out warnings. Nobody intervenes because, honestly, everyone sees the patterns too. The colony's common areas feature Earth-nature videos playing on continuous loops: forests, oceans, rainstorms, snowfalls. These psychological vitamin supplements are supposed to provide mental relief, but instead create a painful reminder of everything colonists have lost. Most people avoid the screens entirely. Cabin fever on Mars isn't like cabin fever on Earth, explains Dr. Kim during a group therapy session. On Earth, you know spring will come eventually. Here, every day looks exactly the same. The psychological impact of eternal sameness cannot be overstated. The gentle whirring of environmental controls creates white noise that many colonists find comforting, but which others describe as the sound of being slowly buried alive in a technological coffin. Seasonal affective disorder takes on new meaning when seasons don't exist. Mars has weather, technically, but it consists of variations of dust, cold, and hostility. There's no spring to anticipate, no summer to enjoy, no autumn beauty, no winter coziness, just endless orange desolation punctuated by dust storms. Sleep disorders plague every colonist because Mars days are 24 hours and 37 minutes long, gradually shifting everyone's circadian rhythms into confused chaos. Nobody gets quality sleep, creating a colony of permanently exhausted people, slowly losing their sanity from chronic fatigue. The observation deck, originally designed as a recreational space where colonists could enjoy the magnificent Martian landscape, has become an unofficial suicide watch area. The view that NASA promotional materials called breathtaking proves literally accurate. Many colonists find it suffocating. The worst part, confides Janet during a rare moment of honesty, isn't missing Earth. It's realizing that this orange wasteland will be the last thing you ever see. Every sunrise, every sunset, every moment you look outside, it's always the same dead planet staring back at you. Group therapy sessions happen twice weekly and focus mainly on preventing complete psychological collapse rather than achieving mental wellness. Dr. Kim's primary job isn't helping people feel good. It's keeping them functional enough to operate life support systems. The colony's exercise facilities serve double duty as rage rooms where colonists can physically exhaust themselves enough to sleep. Punching bags and treadmills aren't fitness equipment. They're psychological pressure release valves preventing violent outbursts in confined spaces. Mars aggression manifests as sudden, inexplicable fury over minor inconveniences. Colonists have fistfights over spoon allocation, scream at malfunctioning equipment, and develop intense hatred for random objects that remind them of their situation. The constant sound of mechanical systems creates what psychologists call technological tinnitus, a persistent awareness that your survival depends entirely on machines that could fail. This knowledge creates chronic anxiety that never fully disappears. Social dynamics deteriorate rapidly in isolated conditions. Friendships become intense and volatile. Romantic relationships either bond couples permanently or explode into dramatic breakups that affect entire colony morale, and simple personality quirks transform into unbearable irritations. Emergency psychological protocols exist for acute reality episodes, moments when colonists suddenly comprehend the full scope of their situation and experience complete emotional breakdown. These episodes require immediate sedation and intensive counseling to prevent colony-wide panic. The gentle hum of life support systems serves as a constant reminder that psychological health is a luxury Mars can't afford. Mental wellness programs focus on maintaining basic functionality rather than happiness, creating a colony of people who are technically sane but fundamentally miserable. By your first month, you understand why the colony maintains detailed psychological profiles on every resident, and why psychological fitness evaluations happen weekly. It's not about ensuring people are happy. It's about identifying who might snap and endanger everyone else's survival. Meanwhile, your introduction to Mars medical care makes you nostalgic for medieval barber surgeons, who at least had the courtesy to get you drunk before amateur surgery. The colony's medical facility operates on the principle that if you're sick enough to need treatment, you're probably healthy enough to perform it yourself. We have one actual doctor for 200 colonists, explains medical technician Rodriguez with the cheerful resignation of someone who's given up hope. Dr. Peterson is excellent, but he can't be everywhere at once. That's why every colonist receives basic surgical training and access to our self-care medical database. The constant hum of medical equipment joins the symphony of mechanical survival sounds, creating what sounds like an intensive care unit designed by people who've never seen sick patients. Your medical orientation involves learning to suture wounds on practice dummies, operate diagnostic scanners that may or may not be functioning correctly, and memorize emergency protocols for conditions you hope never to experience. The training assumes you'll eventually need to perform surgery on yourself or others with YouTube-level medical knowledge. The colony's pharmacy consists mainly of broad-spectrum antibiotics, pain medications that expired 6 months ago, and what Dr. Peterson calls hope-based pharmaceuticals. Drugs that might work if you believe strongly enough and if your condition happens to match their limited therapeutic range. Emergency appendectomy is actually quite straightforward, Rodriguez explains while demonstrating on a plastic torso. The hardest part is staying conscious while performing surgery on yourself. We recommend practicing meditation techniques and having a good relationship with local anesthetics. Medical emergencies require group participation, because complex procedures need multiple people with minimal training, rather than specialists with proper knowledge. Surgery becomes a community activity, where your neighbors attempt to save your life, using equipment they barely understand. The gentle whirring of diagnostic machines creates an oddly soothing backdrop to the terror of realizing that medical care on Mars consists mainly of educated guessing, combined with optimistic improvisation. Dental problems are handled by whoever volunteers to operate the dental equipment, which arrived on Mars with instructions written in 3 languages, none of which anyone speaks fluently. Root canals are performed by mechanical engineers who understand tools better than teeth. The colony's medical database contains downloaded information from Earth medical schools, but it assumes access to equipment, specialists, and pharmaceuticals that don't exist on Mars. Treatment protocols often begin with, if available, consult a cardiologist, or refer immediately to emergency services. The key to Mars medicine, Dr. Peterson explains during his weekly medical briefing, is lowering your expectations to match available resources. We can't cure everything, but we can delay death long enough for most problems to either resolve themselves or become someone else's responsibility. Psychological medications are strictly rationed because shipping psychiatric drugs to Mars costs approximately $10,000 per pill. Depression treatment consists mainly of group therapy, exercise, and the medical advice to try thinking happy thoughts about Earth. The constant sound of life support systems monitoring creates a persistent reminder that everyone's health status is constantly tracked, analyzed, and documented for potential emergency interventions. Privacy in medical matters doesn't exist when everyone might need to perform surgery on anyone. Medical supplies operate under strict inventory control with waiting lists for basic items like bandages, antiseptics, and pain relievers. Getting sick requires advanced planning and resource allocation like everything else on Mars. The worst medical emergency, Rodriguez confides, isn't traumatic injury or sudden illness. It's running out of medical supplies. We can improvise treatment for most conditions, but we can't improvise medicine that doesn't exist. Emergency surgical procedures happen in the colony's general-purpose workshop, using tools designed for equipment repair rather than human anatomy. The operating table is actually a workbench with better lighting and theoretically clean surfaces. Infection control relies heavily on HOPE and industrial-strength cleaning products, because Mars lacks Earth's complex ecosystem of beneficial bacteria that normally help fight infections. Every minor cut becomes a potential life-threatening condition, requiring immediate aggressive treatment. The gentle hum of sterilization equipment works constantly to maintain sanitary conditions. But everyone knows that Mars medical care exists in a constant state of controlled crisis, where minor problems can rapidly become major catastrophes. Blood transfusions require finding compatible donors among colony residents. creating social obligations where people owe each other bodily fluids like currency. Your blood type becomes part of your social identity and civic responsibility. By your second month, you understand why every colonist maintains detailed medical records, and why everyone learns basic emergency procedures. It's not about being prepared for potential problems. It's about accepting that medical emergencies are inevitable, and professional help is a luxury that Mars simply cannot provide. The time passes, and you discover that Mars colony operates under a social hierarchy that makes medieval feudalism look progressive and enlightened. Your position in this carefully constructed pyramid of misery is determined not by wealth or education, but by your access to basic survival resources and specialized knowledge that keeps everyone alive. Welcome to our little slice of corporate dystopia, explains Colony Administrator Williams during your social orientation briefing. We've successfully recreated all the worst aspects of Earth capitalism, but with the added excitement that poor performance reviews can literally result in death. The constant hum of resource management systems provides the soundtrack to humanity's most expensive experiment in workplace authoritarianism, where your job performance directly correlates with your breathing privileges. At the top of the hierarchy sit the essential personnel, doctors, engineers, and systems specialists whose knowledge keeps the colony functional. They receive premium oxygen allocations, better food rations, and private sleeping quarters that are only slightly larger than prison cells, but feel luxurious by Mars standards. Mid-level positions include maintenance workers, agricultural specialists, and communications technicians. These colonists get standard rations and shared accommodations, living in what Earth standards would consider storage closets, but which represent middle-class comfort on Mars. The bottom tier consists of general labor, people whose skills could theoretically be replaced by sufficiently motivated volunteers. They receive minimum rations, sleep in communal dormitories, and exist in a constant state of performance anxiety, because unemployment on Mars means death by resource withdrawal. Your social status here isn't determined by money, Williams explains with the enthusiasm of someone describing cancer treatment options. It's determined by how difficult you would be to replace if you died tomorrow. Job security takes on entirely new meaning when job loss equals actual death. The gentle whirring of life support systems serves as a constant reminder that everyone's survival depends on maintaining their usefulness to the colony's collective survival requirements. Toilet paper allocation has become the unofficial currency of Mars' social status. Essential personnel receive unlimited access to actual toilet paper, while general labor makes do with recycled materials and what the supply manifest euphemistically calls alternative sanitation solutions. Privacy is rationed based on hierarchy. Essential personnel get private sleeping spaces with doors that actually close. Mid-level workers share rooms with one other person. General labor sleeps in dormitories, where personal space is measured in inches, and privacy is a theoretical concept. The beautiful thing about our system, Williams continues, is that it's completely merit-based. Your value to society is measured by your ability to prevent everyone else from dying. It's capitalism distilled to its purest essence, survival of the most useful. Food quality varies dramatically by social level. Essential personnel receive premium rations that include occasional luxury items like actual spices or protein varieties. General labor gets standard nutrient paste and cricket flour with the enthusiasm of prison cafeteria offerings. The constant sound of resource processing equipment creates a mechanical reminder that every privilege must be earned through demonstrable value to colony survival, creating a society where human worth is calculated with mathematical precision. Social mobility exists, but operates under brutal Darwinian principles. Advancing in hierarchy requires either learning essential skills that increase your survival value, or waiting for higher-level personnel to die, quit, or suffer mental breakdowns that remove them from productive positions. Recreation time is allocated based on social status. Essential personnel get actual leisure hours where they can rest without productivity requirements. General labor receives mandatory rest periods that are carefully calculated to maintain work efficiency without providing actual enjoyment. The most efficient aspect of our hierarchy, Williams notes, is that it's completely transparent. Everyone knows exactly where they stand and what they need to do to improve their position. There's no ambiguity about social status when survival depends on usefulness. The gentle hum of environmental controls underscores the reality that social advancement requires becoming so valuable that the colony cannot afford to lose you, creating intense competition for specialized knowledge and essential skills. Romantic relationships are heavily influenced by social hierarchy because couples' combined status determines housing allocations, food rations, and reproduction privileges. Dating on Mars involves calculating survival advantages as much as emotional compatibility. Disciplinary action operates through resource reduction rather than traditional punishment. Reduced oxygen allocations, lower food rations, and decreased privacy serve as effective behavior modification tools when survival depends on colony cooperation. The beauty of our system, Williams concludes, is that it eliminates most workplace drama. When poor performance literally threatens everyone's survival, people tend to focus on doing their jobs rather than office politics. The constant sound of productivity monitoring systems reminds everyone that their value to society is continuously measured, evaluated, and adjusted based on their contribution to collective survival requirements. By your third month, you understand why every colonist obsessively develops additional skills and why continuing education is the colony's most popular voluntary activity. It's not about personal growth. It's about climbing high enough in the hierarchy to gain access to resources that make survival slightly less miserable. While this social stratification continues to evolve, you discover that entertainment on Mars consists of activities that would have been considered cruel and unusual punishment in most Earth civilizations. The colony's Recreation Committee has managed to create leisure activities that somehow make work seem enjoyable by comparison. We've organized 17 different recreational opportunities for colonists, announces Recreation Coordinator Lisa, with the forced enthusiasm of someone advertising dental surgery. Tonight's featured entertainment includes scrap metal crafting, competitive equipment maintenance, and our always popular staring contest with the Martian landscape. The constant hum of life support systems provides the only consistent soundtrack for entertainment that makes watching paint dry seem thrilling by comparison. The colony's library consists of downloaded e-books displayed on screens that flicker constantly due to power conservation measures. Reading requires squinting at dim displays while wearing headphones to block out machinery noise, creating a literary experience that feels like punishment for wanting intellectual stimulation. Board games exist, but they're constructed from recycled metal scraps and spare parts, giving every game piece the aesthetic appeal of industrial waste. Monopoly involves trading actual resource allocation vouchers, making it less of a game and more of a simulation of your daily survival anxieties. Movie night features films downloaded 3 years ago on a projection system that makes everything look like security camera footage. The selection includes mainly educational documentaries about Earth ecosystems, which serve as painful reminders of everything colonists have lost, making entertainment a form of psychological torture. The gentle whirring of projector cooling fans creates an oddly melancholic backdrop to watching nature documentaries about environments that might as well be fantasy worlds for Mars residents. Exercise equipment doubles as entertainment because physical activity represents the only way to experience something resembling fun. The treadmill overlooks the same orange wasteland visible from every window, but at least you're moving while staring at eternal desolation. Social gatherings happen in the common area where colonists sit in uncomfortable metal chairs discussing work problems, resource shortages, and equipment failures. Conversations never venture into topics like dreams, aspirations, or personal interests because those concepts have become irrelevant to survival. The colony's game room features ping-pong tables made from workbenches, darts created from salvaged electronics components, and a pool table that uses metal bearings instead of proper balls. Every game produces industrial sounds that make recreation feel like mechanical work. The constant sound of air recycling systems provides background noise to activities that serve more as time-filling exercises than actual entertainment, creating a recreational environment that emphasizes the passage of time rather than enjoyment. Music consists of downloaded playlists played through speakers that distort everything into metallic approximations of actual songs. Live music doesn't exist because musical instruments are considered unnecessary weight for cargo shipments, leaving colonists with degraded audio files and the memory of what music used to sound like. Creative writing workshops involve colonists composing letters to Earth that take 6 months to arrive, and another 6 months to receive responses. Personal expression becomes an exercise in communicating with people who might be dead by the time messages reach their destination. The colony's art supplies consist of whatever materials can be repurposed from industrial equipment, giving every creative project the aesthetic of prison art made from smuggled contraband. Sculptures look like abstract representations of mechanical failure. Dance parties happen in storage areas using downloaded music and lighting effects created by flickering maintenance equipment. Dancing in confined spaces while wearing work clothes creates physical activity that resembles group calisthenics more than celebration. The gentle hum of environmental controls underscores recreational activities that serve mainly to prevent complete psychological breakdown rather than provide actual enjoyment or personal fulfillment. Outdoor recreation consists of supervised EVA suits walks that allow colonists to experience the majesty of Mars landscape up close, which mainly involves staring at orange rocks while wearing expensive life support equipment. Hiking becomes a survival exercise rather than leisure activity. Trivia nights feature questions about Earth geography, Earth history, and Earth culture that remind everyone of the planet they've abandoned forever. Educational entertainment becomes a form of nostalgia torture disguised as intellectual stimulation. The constant sound of machinery provides the only reliable entertainment, because mechanical noises represent the functioning systems that keep everyone alive, making industrial sounds more comforting than actual recreational activities. Holiday celebrations involve recreating Earth traditions using available resources, resulting in Christmas decorations made from spare parts, and birthday cakes consisting of compressed nutrient blocks, with candles made from melted electronics. Celebrations emphasize what's missing rather than what's present. By your 4th month, you understand why most colonists consider work shifts their preferred daily activity. Labor provides purpose, social interaction, and measurable achievement, while recreational time offers only the opportunity to contemplate how thoroughly entertainment has been reduced to time-killing exercises that prevent complete despair. Simultaneously, the romantic prospects on Mars make medieval arranged marriages seem like fairy tale romance by comparison. Dating in a colony where everyone smells like recycled air and privacy doesn't exist creates relationship dynamics that would fascinate anthropologists and horrify normal humans. Romance on Mars operates under unique constraints, explains Dr. Kim during her weekly psychological briefing. When your dating pool consists of 200 people who you'll see every day for the rest of your life, relationship choices become permanent in ways that Earth dating never required. The constant hum of ventilation systems provides the soundtrack to humanity's most expensive experiment in forced proximity dating, where breaking up with someone means seeing them at breakfast every morning for potentially decades. Privacy for intimate relationships requires advanced planning and resource allocation. The colony's few private spaces must be reserved weeks in advance, making spontaneous romance impossible and reducing intimacy to scheduled appointments like medical procedures. You observe that couples develop either intense, codependent bonds that border on unhealthy, or they maintain careful professional distances that make relationships feel like business partnerships. There's no middle ground when living in space station conditions with limited escape options. The biggest relationship killer, confides Sarah during a rare moment of personal honesty, isn't incompatibility or different interests. It's knowing that this person will be the last person you ever date. The pressure of forever makes every minor annoyance feel like a major catastrophe. The gentle whirring of air recycling systems creates white noise that fails to mask the sounds of intimate activities in adjacent sleeping quarters, making everyone uncomfortably aware of their neighbors' romantic lives and creating a colony-wide knowledge of who's sleeping with whom. Physical attraction operates under different criteria when everyone shares the same unhealthy pallor, chemical body odors, and perpetually unwashed appearance. Traditional standards of attractiveness become irrelevant when survival skills and psychological stability matter more than conventional beauty. Dating conversations focus mainly on practical compatibility, resource-sharing agreements, work schedule coordination, and psychological health assessments. Romantic dinners involve sharing protein paste while discussing oxygen allocation strategies and equipment maintenance responsibilities. The most romantic gesture on Mars, explains Marcus during a group discussion, is offering to share your emergency food rations or volunteering to take someone's extra work shifts. Love languages here are entirely practical, because emotional support doesn't keep people alive. The constant sound of life support systems reminds couples that their relationship exists within the context of collective survival, making personal happiness secondary to colony stability and resource management efficiency. Sexual relationships face unique challenges when privacy requires advanced scheduling. Contraception is strictly controlled due to population planning policies, and intimate activities must account for limited water rations and shared living spaces. Marriage on Mars involves formal resource-sharing contracts more than romantic commitments. Couples combine their material allocations, housing assignments, and work responsibilities in agreements that resemble business mergers more than traditional wedding vows. Breakups are colony-wide events, Dr. Kim notes, because everyone knows about every relationship and separation affects work dynamics, social groupings, and psychological morale. Personal drama becomes public crisis when you can't escape your ex-partner. The gentle hum of environmental controls provides background noise to relationship negotiations that focus on practical survival advantages rather than emotional compatibility, creating partnerships that prioritize function over romance. Jealousy operates differently when the dating pool is permanently limited, and everyone's relationship history is public knowledge. Competition for romantic partners becomes more intense when options are mathematically finite and replacement partners don't exist. The strangest part, confesses Janet, is knowing that whoever you choose will be your last relationship ever. There's no dating around, no experimenting, no learning from romantic mistakes. Every relationship decision is permanent by default. Long-distance relationships with Earth become exercises in emotional torture, because communication delays make conversation impossible, and relationships must survive 6-month gaps between message exchanges. Most Earth relationships die within the first year of Mars colonization. The constant sound of mechanical systems underscores romantic conversations that must account for survival logistics, making love declarations sound like resource allocation negotiations and marriage proposals resemble employment contract discussions. Reproduction involves colony approval processes, genetic screening, and resource planning that turns family planning into government bureaucracy. Having children requires demonstrating that additional population won't threaten collective survival. By your 5th month, you understand why many colonists choose celibacy over the complicated emotional mathematics of Mars relationships. When romance must account for survival logistics, resource sharing, and permanent proximity, many people decide that loneliness is simpler than love under impossible circumstances. The time passes, and you discover that calling home to Earth transforms simple conversation into an exercise in psychological torture that makes long-distance relationships look convenient. Communication with Earth operates on delays that turn every interaction into a painful reminder of just how isolated you've become. Earth communication involves a 20-minute signal delay each way, explains Communications Officer Zhang, with the professional detachment of someone delivering a terminal diagnosis. This means every conversation requires 40 minutes minimum between question and response. Phone calls become more like exchanging recorded messages with people who might be dead by the time you hear their replies. The constant hum of communication equipment provides the soundtrack to humanity's most expensive experiment in social isolation, where staying connected to Earth requires patience that borders on masochistic dedication. Your first call home becomes an emotional disaster when you realize that normal conversation is impossible with 40-minute gaps between responses. You ask your mother how she's feeling, then sit in silence for 40 minutes waiting for an answer to a question she may have forgotten by the time your signal reaches Earth. Real-time conversation doesn't exist. Every communication becomes a series of monologues where people speak for several minutes, then wait nearly an hour for responses that may or may not address what they actually said. Relationships transform into delayed message exchanges rather than interactive conversations. The psychological impact cannot be overstated, Dr. Kim explains during therapy sessions. Human communication evolved for immediate response. These delays create a form of social sensory deprivation that gradually destroys emotional connections with everyone you left behind. The gentle whirring of signal processing equipment creates background noise to conversations that feel like talking to ghosts, where every response arrives so late that emotional context has evaporated and personal connections slowly dissolve. Emergency communications face impossible delays when crises require immediate support. Calling for emotional help during psychological breakdowns means waiting 40 minutes for comfort that arrives after the crisis has passed, making Earth support systems effectively useless for Mars residents. Family relationships deteriorate rapidly when natural conversation becomes impossible. Parents miss their children's developmental milestones, couples struggle to maintain intimacy through delayed monologues, and friendships die from the inability to share immediate emotional responses. The cruelest aspect, confides Rodriguez, is knowing that people on Earth are living their lives in real time while you're stuck in permanent communication lag. Every conversation reminds you that you're no longer part of their immediate world. The constant sound of signal delay equipment serves as a technological reminder that you've effectively left the human social network and joined a small, isolated group that exists in communication purgatory between worlds. News from Earth arrives in delayed batches that make current events feel like historical documentaries. Learning about major events 20 minutes after they happen makes you a permanent outsider to global human experience, receiving information about a world you can no longer influence or participate in. Therapy sessions with Earth-based psychologists become exercises in futility when emotional crises require immediate response, but professional help arrives 40 minutes later. Mental health support transforms into delayed advice delivery, rather than interactive therapeutic intervention. Video calls are worse than audio, Zhang notes, because you can see people aging and changing during the communication delays. Watching family members live their lives in slow motion while you're stuck in temporal isolation creates a unique form of grief. The gentle hum of data transmission systems provides constant background noise to the realization that every conversation with Earth reminds you of everything you've permanently lost, rather than maintaining connections with people you love. Social media becomes impossible because interactive platforms require immediate response capabilities. Mars colonists become passive observers of Earth's social networks, watching friends and family interact in real time, while being unable to participate in conversations that move too quickly for interplanetary response times. The worst communication experiences, Zhang confides, are emergency calls when people on Earth are crying or celebrating and need immediate emotional response. You watch them experience life-changing moments and can't react until 40 minutes later, making you useless during the moments when people need you most. Time zone coordination becomes meaningless when communication delays exceed the length of most conversations. Scheduling calls requires calculating optimal Earth times while accounting for Mars schedule requirements and signal delay logistics. The constant sound of communication equipment processing serves as a mechanical reminder that maintaining relationships with Earth requires superhuman patience and acceptance that all social connections will gradually deteriorate under the weight of impossible communication logistics. By your 6th month, you understand why most colonists stop calling Earth regularly and why communication with home becomes increasingly sporadic. The pain of delayed conversations that emphasize isolation eventually outweighs the comfort of hearing familiar voices that feel increasingly distant and disconnected from your Mars reality. Meanwhile, your first Martian dust storm experience makes Earth hurricanes look like gentle spring breezes. The weather on Mars operates under the principle that if you thought the planet was trying to kill you before, you haven't seen anything yet. Dust storm season lasts approximately 6 months, announces weather coordinator Johnson with the enthusiasm of someone describing a plague outbreak. During this period, the entire planet becomes essentially uninhabitable, even by our already generous definition of habitable. The constant hum of air filtration systems working overtime provides the soundtrack to humanity's most expensive experiment in surviving weather that makes biblical apocalypses seem mild by comparison. The storm begins as a distant orange wall on the horizon that grows larger each day, like watching a tsunami made of sand approaching in slow motion. The psychological impact of seeing an entire planet's worth of dust heading directly toward your tiny metal habitat cannot be understated. The storm covers the entire planet, Johnson explains while pointing at satellite imagery that shows Mars disappearing under an orange blanket. There's nowhere to hide, nowhere to evacuate, and no way to predict exactly when it will end. We just seal everything and wait. Visibility drops to 0 within hours of the storm's arrival. Looking outside becomes pointless because the windows show only swirling orange darkness that makes midnight look bright by comparison. The colony effectively becomes a submarine buried in sand. The gentle whirring of emergency life support systems creates an oddly comforting backdrop to the realization that you're trapped in a metal box, while an entire planet tries to sandblast you into oblivion. Solar power becomes impossible when dust blocks 99% of sunlight, forcing the colony to operate on battery reserves and emergency power systems that weren't designed for 6-month continuous operation. Electricity rationing makes previous resource restrictions seem generous. Dust infiltrates everything despite supposed sealed environments. Every surface develops a fine coating of iron oxide that tastes metallic and creates respiratory problems. Breathing becomes an exercise in filtering out particles that seem to materialize from nowhere. The psychological impact of permanent darkness, Dr. Kim explains during emergency therapy sessions, combines claustrophobia, seasonal affective disorder, and apocalyptic anxiety into a unique form of madness that we call storm syndrome. People start believing the dust storm will never end. The constant sound of filtration systems working at maximum capacity serves as a mechanical heartbeat for a colony that feels increasingly like a tomb buried under planetary weather that exceeds all reasonable definitions of storm. Equipment failures multiply exponentially during dust storms because particles infiltrate machinery despite protective measures. Repair work becomes constantly necessary while outdoor maintenance becomes impossible, creating a backlog of problems that accumulate throughout the storm season. Food production suffers when agricultural systems can't function properly under emergency power conditions. Hydroponic farms operate on reduced lighting and minimal environmental controls, creating crop failures that must be offset by emergency rations that taste progressively worse as the storm continues. The worst part, confides Marcus during a maintenance briefing, isn't the isolation or equipment problems. It's knowing that this storm could last 8 months instead of 6, and there's absolutely nothing we can do except wait and hope our supplies last longer than the weather. The gentle hum of backup power systems provides background noise to daily life that feels increasingly like being buried alive, while an entire planet throws a 6-month tantrum outside your protective shell. Communication with Earth becomes impossible when dust interferes with satellite signals and radio transmissions. The colony becomes completely isolated from external contact, creating a social isolation that makes previous loneliness seem trivial by comparison. Mental health deteriorates rapidly during extended periods of total darkness and confinement. Colonists develop cabin fever that makes previous psychological problems look minor, creating a colony-wide mental health crisis that must be managed without external support. Storm protocol, Johnson explains, involves accepting that everything will break, everyone will go slightly insane, and survival depends on maintaining basic life support while waiting for weather that operates on geological timescales rather than human patience. The constant sound of environmental systems struggling against dust infiltration creates a persistent reminder that the colony exists at the mercy of weather patterns that could continue indefinitely, without regard for human survival requirements. Emergency rationing becomes standard operating procedure when storms last longer than anticipated. Every resource gets stretched beyond safe limits, while colonists debate whether to implement catastrophic rationing protocols that guarantee some people won't survive to see the storm's end. By your 7th month, which coincides with your first complete dust storm cycle, you understand why Mars colonization has the highest psychological casualties of any human endeavor. The planet doesn't just challenge human engineering, it systematically destroys human hope through weather that makes survival feel like an exercise in prolonged dying. The time passes, and you now work in the colony's hydroponic farms, which smell like a combination of chemical fertilizer, desperation, and what happens when engineers try to recreate agriculture without understanding how plants actually grow. The underground growing facilities represent humanity's most expensive attempt to convince vegetables to exist under impossible conditions. Welcome to Mars agriculture, announces farm supervisor Chen with the forced optimism of someone selling swampland. We've successfully recreated all the worst aspects of industrial farming, but with the added challenge that everything we grow tastes like the chemical solutions we use to keep it alive. The constant hum of growth lighting systems provides the soundtrack to humanity's most technologically advanced experiment in producing food that makes medieval gruel seem appetizing by comparison. The hydroponic bays consist of endless rows of plants growing in chemical solutions under artificial lighting that creates a perpetual twilight atmosphere. Every vegetable looks artificially perfect, but tastes like processed nutrients held together by scientific optimism. Growing conditions require precise chemical balance monitoring that turns farming into laboratory work. Every plant nutrient must be calculated, measured, and adjusted constantly, because Mars agriculture operates more like chemistry experiments than traditional farming. Our tomatoes contain all essential nutrients, Chen explains, while showing you plants that look perfect but smell vaguely chemical. They just don't taste like tomatoes anymore, or anything recognizable really. But they won't kill you, which is the important thing. The gentle whirring of circulation pumps creates background noise to agricultural work that involves more monitoring electronic systems than actually touching plants, making farming feel like operating industrial equipment rather than growing food. Crop failures happen regularly because Martian agriculture operates at the edge of biological possibility. Plants that evolved on Earth struggle to adapt to artificial growing conditions, creating constant stress about food security that adds another layer of survival anxiety. The colony's seed bank represents genetic diversity shipped from Earth at astronomical cost, making every seed worth more than precious metals. Plant reproduction becomes carefully managed to prevent genetic bottlenecks that could destroy entire food categories. The biggest challenge, Chen confides, isn't growing plants under artificial conditions. It's accepting that everything we produce tastes like the chemical solutions we use to keep it alive. Natural flavor is apparently an Earth luxury that doesn't translate to survival agriculture. The constant sound of ventilation systems circulating chemical-scented air creates an atmosphere that makes working in the farms feel like operating inside a giant laboratory experiment rather than traditional agricultural spaces. Soil doesn't exist on Mars, so everything grows in nutrient solutions that must be constantly monitored, adjusted, and recycled. Farming becomes an exercise in chemistry management where understanding molecular structures matters more than traditional agricultural knowledge. Pest control involves monitoring for organisms that shouldn't exist, but somehow appear anyway, creating biological mysteries that require constant vigilance. Mars agriculture includes debugging problems that Earth farmers never had to consider. Our wheat produces bread that's technically nutritious, Chen notes while showing you grain that looks normal, but smells faintly metallic. It just tastes like the industrial processes used to grow it. Flavor is apparently optional when survival is the primary concern. The gentle hum of automated harvesting systems provides background noise to food production that emphasizes quantity over quality, creating agricultural output that meets caloric requirements while completely abandoning any pretense of culinary appeal. Crop rotation operates on principles designed by nutritionists rather than farmers, focusing on maintaining vitamin and mineral production rather than soil health or natural growing cycles. Every plant serves a specific nutritional function in the colony's survival diet. The underground farms extend deep into Mars's subsurface, creating vast cave systems lined with growing equipment that makes agriculture feel like industrial manufacturing rather than food production. Working underground adds claustrophobia to the already unpleasant aspects of chemical farming. The strangest part, confides Maria, a fellow farm worker, is knowing that this artificial food will be the only thing we ever eat again. There's no going to a restaurant, no trying new cuisines, no enjoying fresh ingredients. This chemical agriculture is our permanent food source. The constant sound of environmental controls managing temperature and humidity creates a mechanical backdrop to agricultural work that requires more technical knowledge than farming experience, making food production feel like engineering rather than cultivation. Emergency food protocols involve switching to even more basic nutrient production when systems fail or resources run low. The backup food plan makes current agricultural output seem luxurious by comparison, ensuring that even chemical-tasting vegetables represent the good times. Storage and preservation require industrial processes because natural preservation methods don't work under Mars conditions. Food processing involves more chemistry than cooking, creating meal preparation that feels like laboratory work. By your 8th month, you understand why every Mars colonist develops the same relationship with food. It's fuel for survival rather than a source of pleasure. When agriculture becomes chemistry and cooking becomes food processing, eating transforms from cultural activity into biological maintenance requirement. While this agricultural nightmare continues, you learn that equipment repair on Mars operates under the principle that everything will break at the worst possible moment, and fixing it requires creativity that would impress medieval blacksmiths working with space-age technology they barely understand. Murphy's Law applies exponentially on Mars, explains Chief Engineer Thompson, while examining a water recycling system held together with spare parts and desperate improvisation. If something can break, it will break. If it can't break, it will break anyway. And when it breaks, replacement parts are either 3 years away or completely unavailable. The constant hum of machinery operating beyond design specifications provides the soundtrack to humanity's most expensive experiment in keeping technology functional, under conditions that would make equipment engineers weep. Your first repair assignment involves fixing an air filtration system using parts cannibalized from a broken communication array, some metal strips salvaged from food packaging, and what Thompson calls engineering optimism. The repair manual assumes access to Earth manufacturing capabilities and professional repair facilities. Every piece of equipment operates in permanent, emergency backup mode, because normal operational parameters don't exist on Mars. Machines designed for Earth conditions struggle constantly against dust, temperature extremes, and radiation levels that exceed their design tolerances. The art of Mars engineering, Thompson explains, while demonstrating how to jury-rig a water pump using spare electronics and creative wiring, involves making equipment do things it was never designed to do using materials that shouldn't work, but somehow manage to function temporarily. The gentle whirring of improvised machinery creates background noise to repair work that combines aerospace engineering with apocalypse survival skills, making every fix feel like a temporary victory against inevitable technological breakdown. Spare parts inventory operates like a complex trading system where broken equipment gets disassembled to provide components for other broken equipment. Repair work involves robbing Peter to pay Paul, creating an endless cycle of moving problems around, rather than actually solving them. The colony's workshop looks like a combination of NASA laboratory and post-apocalyptic scrapyard, filled with expensive equipment that's been modified beyond recognition to perform functions it was never intended to handle, under conditions it wasn't designed to survive. Our 3D printer, Thompson notes with professional pride, can manufacture replacement parts using recycled plastic from food packaging and metal shavings from broken equipment. Quality control involves prayer and frequent testing, but it beats waiting 3 years for shipments from Earth. The constant sound of machinery operating at the edge of failure provides a persistent reminder that every system could break at any moment, requiring immediate repair using whatever materials happen to be available. Diagnostic work involves troubleshooting equipment problems using maintenance manuals written for Earth conditions, with tools designed for professional repair facilities. Every repair becomes an exercise in creative interpretation of technical specifications. The most challenging repairs, Thompson confides, involve life support systems that can't be shut down for maintenance. You have to fix critical equipment while it's operating, like performing surgery on a running patient while wearing oven mitts. Emergency repair protocols assume that everything will break simultaneously during the worst possible circumstances. Crisis management involves prioritizing which failures will kill people fastest and addressing those first, while accepting that other systems will continue deteriorating. The gentle hum of backup systems constantly engaging creates background noise to repair work that emphasizes keeping things barely functional rather than actually fixing them properly, making maintenance feel like delaying inevitable catastrophic failure. Tool sharing operates under strict protocols because specialty equipment is irreplaceable if lost or broken. Every tool represents potential survival capability that must be carefully managed and protected like precious resources. Mars engineering philosophy, Thompson explains, involves accepting that nothing will work correctly, everything will break frequently, and successful repair means functional enough to prevent immediate death, rather than working properly. The constant sound of improvised solutions operating beyond design limits serves as a mechanical testament to human ingenuity combined with desperate necessity, creating repair work that resembles art more than engineering. Preventive maintenance becomes impossible when basic operations require all available equipment running continuously. Everything operates until it breaks, then gets repaired using whatever materials and methods are available at the moment of failure. Equipment documentation involves constant updates as original specifications become irrelevant and repair modifications accumulate. Every machine evolves into a unique hybrid of original design and improvised modifications. The strangest part, Thompson notes, is realizing that our most reliable equipment consists of simple mechanical devices that don't depend on electronics or precise tolerances. Sometimes medieval technology proves more dependable than space-age engineering. By your 9th month, you understand why every Mars colonist becomes proficient at basic repair work, and why equipment maintenance is considered everyone's responsibility. When replacement is impossible and professional repair doesn't exist, everyone must learn to keep technology functional using creativity, determination, and acceptance that nothing will ever work exactly as intended. The time passes, and you now find yourself contemplating the ultimate question that haunts every Mars colonist: whether humanity's greatest technological achievement might actually be its most elaborate and expensive form of voluntary torture. After 10 months of surviving on Mars, you realize that colonization isn't conquest. It's an exercise in discovering how much suffering humans can endure while technically staying alive. The beautiful irony, reflects Dr. Peterson during one of his philosophical evening discussions, is that we solved every technical challenge of getting to Mars and keeping people alive here. What we didn't solve was making any of it worthwhile. We can survive on Mars. We just can't live here. The constant hum of life support systems provides the soundtrack to humanity's most successful failure. A technological triumph that proves humans can survive anywhere while simultaneously demonstrating that survival and living are completely different concepts. You sit in the observation deck staring at the same orange wasteland that greeted you 10 months ago, realizing that this view will never change, never improve, never offer anything new or beautiful or inspiring. Mars isn't just hostile, it's aesthetically monotonous in ways that slowly erode human spirit. The cost-benefit analysis of Mars colonization becomes stark when calculated in human terms, rather than technological achievements. Humanity spent $2 trillion to create a lifestyle that makes medieval peasants seem privileged, medieval food seem gourmet, and medieval medicines seem advanced. We've successfully recreated every worst aspect of human existence, you observe during a group discussion, but with none of the compensating benefits. Earth's harshest environments at least offered seasons, weather variety, natural beauty, or eventual escape. Mars offers permanent orange desolation. The gentle whirring of environmental controls creates background noise to conversations where colonists debate whether they're pioneers advancing human civilization or voluntary participants in humanity's most expensive psychological experiment. Every Earth memory becomes painfully vivid in contrast to Mars reality. The simple pleasure of breathing freely, feeling rain, seeing colors other than orange, eating food that tastes good, or having privacy becomes impossible to recreate or replace with technological substitutes. The most successful aspect of Mars colonization, Dr. Kim notes during therapy sessions, is proving that humans can psychologically adapt to anything. The least successful aspect is discovering that adaptation doesn't equal happiness, fulfillment, or meaningful existence. The colony's social dynamics have stabilized into a permanent emergency mindset where survival takes precedence over all other human values. Culture, art, personal growth, and individual expression have been sacrificed for collective functionality. The constant sound of machinery provides a mechanical heartbeat for a society that successfully keeps people alive, while systematically eliminating everything that makes life worth living. Mars colonization achieves biological success and existential failure simultaneously. You calculate that Earth's worst prison conditions offer more variety, better food, superior medical care, and greater personal freedom than Mars' best living situations. Colonists live in luxury compared to dying, but in misery compared to any reasonable standard of human existence. The question isn't whether we can survive on Mars, reflects Thompson during equipment maintenance. The question is whether survival under these conditions constitutes success or elaborate suicide. We're alive, but we're not living. The technological achievements required for Mars survival represent incredible human ingenuity, applied to creating lifestyle conditions that no rational person would choose voluntarily. Engineering triumphs enable biological survival while ensuring psychological suffering. The gentle hum of recycling systems serves as a constant reminder that everything on Mars is artificial, recycled, processed, and designed purely for function rather than human enjoyment or fulfillment. Future generations of Mars-born humans will know no other existence, but current colonists live with the constant awareness of everything they've lost. Every day reinforces the knowledge that Earth represents paradise compared to Mars' survival conditions. Mars colonization succeeds brilliantly at answering the wrong question, Dr. Peterson concludes. We proved humans can survive on Mars. We didn't ask whether humans should survive on Mars, or whether survival under these conditions represents human progress or regression. The constant sound of life support systems creates a mechanical lullaby for humanity's most technologically advanced experiment, in discovering that solving survival problems doesn't necessarily create livable solutions. You realize that Mars colonization represents humanity's triumph over impossible challenges and simultaneous demonstration that conquering hostile environments doesn't automatically create desirable living conditions. Success and suffering can coexist in ways that make victory feel like elaborate defeat. By your 10th month, you understand that Mars colonization answers every technical question about human survival, while raising profound philosophical questions about human purpose, meaning, and the difference between existing and living. The colony succeeds completely at keeping people alive, and fails completely at creating lives worth living. Perhaps humanity's greatest achievement isn't reaching Mars. It's creating conditions that make Earth seem like paradise by comparison, ensuring that anyone who survives Mars will never again take for granted the simple miracle of living on a planet designed for life. Now that our journey through Mars colonization has come to an end, imagine yourself slowly drifting away from that orange wasteland, from the cramped metal habitats and the endless hum of life support systems. The sound of recycled air circulation begins to fade gradually, like a mechanical lullaby that's finally winding down after a long, exhausting day. You close your eyes and feel the weight of your own body sinking deeper into your comfortable bed here on Earth. Your muscles release all the tension from imagining life in EVA suits and cramped sleeping quarters. Your breathing becomes slower, more natural, following the rhythm your body has always known without needing technological assistance. Think about the simple luxuries surrounding you right now. Fresh air that doesn't need to be recycled, water that flows freely from taps, food that actually tastes good, and the basic human dignity of privacy and personal space. These aren't advanced technologies or expensive privileges. They're the natural gifts of living on a planet designed for life. The gentle sounds of Earth night begin to replace the mechanical symphony of Mars' survival systems. Maybe it's the whisper of wind through trees, the distant hum of traffic, or simply the quiet stillness of your room. These sounds represent a world where technology serves human comfort, rather than human survival, where machines enhance life rather than merely preserving it. Your blanket wraps around you like the protective atmosphere of an entire planet that wants you to live, breathe, and thrive. The pillow cradles your head with the same care that Earth's gravity, magnetic field, and perfect distance from the sun have cradled humanity for thousands of generations. Perhaps this story has made you think about our relationship with technology, our dreams of space exploration, or our appreciation for the remarkable planet we call home. But now those thoughts can float away, gently, like leaves drifting on a warm breeze, carrying your worries and wonderings into the peaceful night. The recycled air systems of Mars fade completely now, replaced by the natural rhythm of your own breathing in air that has never needed to be processed, filtered, or rationed. Each breath comes easily, freely, without calculation or anxiety about tomorrow's allocation. Your body temperature adjusts naturally without technological intervention. Your heart beats steadily without monitoring systems. Your mind begins to quiet without needing chemical assistance or psychological protocols. Everything works as it should, as it was designed to work, as it has worked for millions of years of human existence. Imagine yourself floating on a cloud of gratitude for the simple miracle of being human on Earth, where survival isn't a technological achievement but a natural birthright, where breathing is automatic, eating is pleasurable, and sleeping is restorative rather than merely necessary. The mechanical sounds of Mars colony life have disappeared entirely now, replaced by the profound silence of a world at peace. No alarms, no system failures, no resource calculations, just the gentle embrace of a planet that has spent billions of years preparing itself to support life like yours. Now that our story has reached its end, imagine yourself drifting away from all thoughts of distant planets and impossible challenges. The soft sounds of your own world surround you. Thoughts dissolve into peaceful emptiness, and your comfortable bed welcomes you home. The day's tensions fade away. Your eyes grow heavy with Earth's natural sleepiness, and the world of dreams opens gently before you. Good night, sleep well, and sweet dreams.